Okay.
There we are. This meeting is now being live streamed. So let me press got it.
Okay.
Siobahn, I'll be with you in a second. I'm just going to go to my phone now because that's the way I can see messages from people and things like that.
Yeah.
All very technical, you know.
I need one of you over here, like with me all the time.
God. And with all this, oh, there we are. We're live. That's awfully good.
Good.
Comments will appear here.
Okay.
Write a comment. People normally write rude things to me and stuff like that and try and put me off, you know.
Really? Come on.
No. Everything I say, just treat it as a joke or a lie, you know, because people basically they say something, they take it literally, and I say I was just joking, you know.
Right. Okay. Well, you know, if somebody gives you a hard time, we'll both have a crack at them and see how it goes.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. But that's my my attitude to life is I've got no idea what's going on, and I don't try and analyze stuff anymore. I just go with how I feel.
Mindlessness is good, isn't it?
Say again.
Mindlessness is great, isn't it?
Oh, mindlessness, absolutely, mindlessness. Yeah, I call that the metaphorical decapitation process. Really, is just take my head off, throw it away, and just go and sort of ride the wave that comes from my heart, you know. And it seems to be doing me good, and so I think I'll just carry on, really.
Yeah, in the flow.
Absolutely. And, you know, sometimes challenges come and I think, well, okay, this is a challenge. Before I used to dive into it, react, you know, kick off and think, why are all these things happening to me? Until somebody said to me a long time ago, you know, when you point the finger out that way, there's 3 fingers coming back at you. And they say, if you just turn it like that, it looks like a V. And that V stands for victim. I thought, who is this person talking to me like that? Doesn't he know who I am? And he said to me, Joe, he said, as soon as you point the finger, you're basically giving your power away. You know, you're forgetting that you're responsible for everything that's coming to you. So basically, this is all about...
If someone's waking up, though, you know, sometimes when you get caught in it and you're ungrounded and you're just feeling the gamut of emotion and it's uncontrollable at the time, you know, there may be this pointing outward, you know, within your thoughts or within your feelings or even to other people. But that is really designed to help people listen to themselves, you know, hear themselves, hear their thoughts, hear where they're going with things so they can prevent it. You know, what do you call it? I pull the plug on the energy. Pull the plug on the energy. Go back inward and breathe. Remember what's going on. And I find that focusing on the bigger picture is not always easy. And initially it might not even be realistic to some people when they're caught in a drama of some sort or some emotional upheaval. But when you focus on the bigger picture of what's happening, especially people who are spiritual in nature, and everyone's got their things going on, and it's been wicked intense the past month. I mean, oh my God, what month is it now? It's June. Well, since April, I don't know. Boom, boom, boom. And so, you know, it's all gone so fast and things have blown up and things have reorganized themselves and there's ashes and those have been taken care of and things have been transformed. But nonetheless, when you try to remember the bigger picture, because when you think about what's going on, that everybody's in this together and everyone who is conscious or really wanting to be more conscious and take responsibility and come to love, then they're going to go through it a lot harder because their feeling nature is super activated. And if we can remember to just come to love and just see the bigger picture, we're at a very auspicious time in the evolution of humans into consciousness, in the planet. And we just have to love more. And if we can focus on that and have an appreciation for what's being given to us right now, then that really tends to calm people down. There are, of course, many different techniques in order to get back in the body and focus more in a calm place. But appreciation is a real good one to bring you back to what's real, bring you back to your heart, bring you back to love, you know.
Couldn't agree more, really. But then there's all sorts of, well, there's only, in my view, one sort of love. And I think that we get mixed up, really, as human beings, because I think for the first half of my life, I thought love was possessiveness. I see that quite clearly now. But, you know, in relationships, I actually took prisoners rather than allowing people to be free and be themselves, you know. But I didn't know this, you know, I didn't know it because culturally I've been brought up that way, you know. So I'm beginning to see that from a very early age, and possibly even before I was born, there was all sorts of programs that were running in me and running me, and when any sort of environmental situations kicked off, I automatically reacted and responded either in an arrogant way or in a fearful way, because I only see those two sides really. One's a fearful child and one's an arrogant know-it-all really. And both of those to me are sort of just aspects of a misdirected ego, and I've got no problem with an ego if it's like balanced, because I think that all human beings are the ego and need the ego, for protection, up to a point. So that's where I've come to, human love to me is about possessiveness, and true unconditional love is about letting go and allowing people to be responsible for themselves. And also, over to you, Siobahn.
We learn to protect ourselves with ego, and it's all based in fear. And that comes from a very young age, as we have been open to the energies and the wiles of others, showing us what their version of love is, and us not knowing any better as a child, and accepting that as love. And it's very human, it's very conditional, it's very everything you just mentioned. And then we have this true love, which is that we are the source of within ourselves. We're made of it. That's why negative emotion can be transformed back into the light of the soul, with a little bit of skill and a little bit of time. And so we learn to use the ego as a protective mechanism, but in truth, the vulnerability, true vulnerability, is being so strongly in the love you are that nothing can hurt you, rather than protecting your vulnerability. And sometimes it takes a bit to separate yourself out from the condition. Notice, like myself, I left home at 14. There were, I had to remove myself from the hell that was my family in order for me to regroup and be able to just breathe, to be able to live, actually. So we do have to remove ourselves from situations until we become strong enough in ourselves to then face them. And when I've taken it upon myself to do, which I still do, the work that I teach, you learn how to transform the energy within the physical body, the negative emotions. So there's less and less and less of that to recreate itself in your external reality. It's just not a vibrational match, if you will. You still have subtle things that'll come up in the reflections of others. And when you have this mindset that, wow, thank you for this gift, as painful as it is, as much as I want to blow it back to you, the responsibility part is huge. And it's a struggle for many to take that, and they remain just like you said. Let's see, what's that? The victim. Where'd they get that V? Oh, I see. Yeah.
Well, sometimes you don't have to do it like that. You can do it like that, but that's sort of got a different sort of meaning to some people. and that one.
Hey, that's Roman.
Well, that one's one of my favorite. That's one of my favorite ones. That, and poke somebody in the eye with it.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I agree with you, and it's a process of learning, it's a process of education, it's a process of growing up, but not growing up in the responsible way that people sometimes see growing up. I think it's to me, the way it seems to work with me is the more I let go, the deeper I sort of sink within myself. And as I sink deeper and deeper, it's almost like my head pops up with different ideas and different. So to me, all about higher dimensions and lower dimensions and all this, I don't see it like that, because I see evolution, I see as a sphere, and there's no ups and downs in a sphere. There's just it turns, and so
in truth, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's what I see. The great shift in consciousness to me is also aligned with a planetary shift that's also moving around as well and being influenced by different forces in a different way. And because we live on this globe, if you like, and we're on this globe, it affects us in our hemispheres as well, because I also see the brain as a global structure as well, you see. So I think what tends to happen to me is I was very, very scientific, very logical, very linear, and very left-brained. And some people associate that with masculine tendencies, whatever. It doesn't matter to me, because I think once you start labeling, oh, that's a masculine, that's a feminine, it just causes more confusion. So where I'm up to now is I'm less analytical, although part of my job demands that I be an analyst in a scientific way. but more or less I just go with the feeling that's actually I can feel this flow that comes out of my open and flowing heart.
Let me back that up just a minute, because I want to understand your process a little bit better. Now, you say that you have to be analytical, but in truth, are you actually thinking to arrive at those conclusions, or are you listening? So you're listening, so you're not using the brain. And that's the thing. We emphasize this so much. When you learn how to manage your energy and keep it below your feet and just tune into the silence, you literally listen to the silence in your solar plexus. There's nothing going on in your head. And that's really how to deal with the mind. It's there to hold a place. It says to hold a focus of listening and interpreting the silence. And so there's no knowledge, especially when you're locked into the specific vein that you are in your field, that you can't mine from listening. Like, you just want to know it from a feeling perspective, or need to know it, but the knowing isn't with the head, it's with the listening. So it's that much deeper knowing. It's way beyond intuition. It's the silence. So if you're actually learning, then you're analyzing, not with the head. And most people associate analytical with, I don't even like the word.
No, I agree. I feel exactly what you mean. And I can tell by the way that you look and listen in and stuff like that. We work with the same process, because I think everybody gets to that point at some point, and, the whole thing about, can we get fast track? Is there a fast track to this? No, totally. No, because in essence, there's no time, and people talk about, and they say with their heads, oh, I'm now living in the eternal now, because I used to say this. I just said it because everybody else was saying it. I didn't really feel or understand what they were going on about, but now I do,
Well, there's a huge difference, though, in knowing these spiritual truths through books, through listening to other people, through agreeing with everyone about what they come to conclusions about. And let me tell you from experience, there is a lot of transformation that has to happen between your knowing of a truth and having it become the experience of your reality. And so it's like when they say God will provide, and that is one of the biggest truths of truths. But how many people can leave their job and walk out with the same level of abundance or more without punching that time clock? Very few. And when people try to do that ahead of time, ahead of the inner work that requires for them to get over doubt, fear, lack, and worry, then they suffer, because there is a part of them that goes to doubt so big, and they don't know how to manage that doubt. They don't know how to speak to that shadow. That's why they call it a shadow. It's a big shadow. And how to transform to make that part of the framework of their reality. It's in the manifesting. It's in not with affirmations. It's really a different way. It's just different. It's a different way than people realize. So knowing the truth is different than having it be your experience of that truth. And we strongly encourage people to take a truth that you hear and let your spirit team know. I've told my guidance, I want to live that. I don't want to know that. I want to experience that. And I want to see if what I was told, if I do this, I can arrive at that. And son of a gun, it's true. So we're always evolving into these greater truths if we want to experience them. And I can't emphasize that enough. If you want to know something or experience something beyond the knowing, then just work with yourself and your other aspects of the whole of who you are to help get you there.
So that's interesting. Can you expand a bit more on the other aspects of who you are in the way that you see things?
Yes, I see. Everyone talks of oneness, but one itself is separation. In relation to what we say? One in relation to what? So the only real whole number is zero, because zero is a circle that has no end. It just expands, right? So I'm really this oneness thing. It's a language humans understand from a dualistic perspective, but to get to wholeness from the premise of duality does not make sense to me. So I love the part of me that is Dr. Joe. And everything is an aspect of the whole of who you are, which some people call God, some people call whatever word you want to call it. I call it God. So it's everything. And so there are aspects of myself that I constantly communicate with if I want to know more about them. So say, let's use this because people understand this. So we talk about angels, okay? Angels have no form, they have no color, they have no shape. They're an aspect of consciousness, higher consciousness, that you can learn to communicate with, and how people create stronger bonds with this aspect of themselves is by calling it forth as something separate initially, realizing that it is part of who they are. Like Archangel Michael's a big one for me, and I just love him so, so much. And he's been with me forever. And, but he's not in the forefront now. In my early days, he very much was. And, but if I, to get to know him, I just kept calling upon him and resonating with that part of myself that is him, that part of myself, part of him within my own consciousness, which is everything. So in other words, if I wanted to play the violin, I would get with that part of me that is Mozart, and work with that aspect of me, because we are not in truth separate from anything. So whether it's Mozart or Hitler,
No, I totally understand what you're saying. I have a different view of it, but we're describing, as far as I see it, the same thing in different words, and the way I've sort of, my mind sends to me information is that I got the figure 12, how important that was, but how important the 13 was, and I see that the 13 is representative, as the way I see it, as the heart. Some people call that the Christ self, with the 12 disciples. And I think, okay, well, I was brought up as a Roman Catholic, I can handle that, so 12 disciples. And then I get, well, actually, Joe, there's 12 disciples with two aspects to it. There's a masculine and a feminine thing. Slow down a bit with it.
I don't believe in the feminine and masculine.
No, only just words to try and describe what I'm sort of saying, So either one's open, one's closed, that's how it works at the level of the DNA. So this is what they show me. And they say, Joe, the 12 cranial nerves are also connected to the way that the heart works. So what we're going to try and show you is, we're going to try and show you how you can help people to get in touch with their heart, how to activate all those 12 cranial nerves, because most of them activate the muscles of the face. So how you hold your face determines your mood state, and actually determines what your heart draws to you. The next lesson.
Am I doing okay?
Yeah, no, doing fine. So that thing about people
say I've never heard that. That's interesting.
Yeah, so that's drawn into you, if you like. That deeper part of you is drawn into you perfectly the next day on the stage that you have to go and sort of take action on, and that's the way I see it. But the 12 cranial nerves then, and this is what my mind shows me, and I've got no idea about teams and all that, and I know that people talk to their teams and all that, but to me, I see these 12 potentials or 12 attributes that are available to all human beings.
Oh,
as this great shift's coming in, it's actually pressing on these sort of clogged up sort of portals, if you like, that are now being reactivated, and different thoughts and different streams of consciousness now are starting to flow into people. But because it's so powerful, people are overwhelmed with it because they haven't got the emotional processing capacity to be able to handle it. And that's why lots and lots of people are cracking up, because they're being overwhelmed with this quantum consciousness, if you like.
So we talking about that. We're writing our second book right now and talk about that a lot. The difference in the, we talk about channeling and how it splits off somebody because they're streaming their highest levels of consciousness through the physical apparatus, which is tough on the physical body. Number one, white light in this dimension just is so raw and so pure, like you say. So people don't know how to handle what they're getting because it's all located up here. And what we choose to use is the golden light, because I very much know the difference. It's been part of my process for 34 years. And I was a channel before that, straight up channel. That it was like the carrier oil for the white light in this dimension, because spirit gives everything life, including love, and everything here is made of love. Love in this dimension is the golden light. And so as you use it, it can actually move in and through and awaken spirit within the matter of you. And when you learn how to stabilize in that inner being of love, then the highest consciousness, or this pure consciousness, can emerge from within the golden light quite naturally. And then it doesn't become so overwhelming because, like you say, people are trying to sift through stuff they cannot process. And it can be intense. The way I describe it for myself sometimes, and I've been doing this a long time, is that it's like this huge dish on top of my head. And it comes down to a little hole about this big, and it's trying to come in all at once. And you've got to learn how to stabilize, in your body. When people feel emotional and they can't control it, working with us to show you how to work with your inner being, to drop it to the ground, to inhale that golden light, to open the base of the spine, drop anchor immediately, or take yourself through a more gentle process of the roots of light coming down into the layers of the earth and anchoring at the warm golden core. That helps you stabilize in that being. People can calm themselves down by changing how they think, but it really doesn't do much at the, to transform the emotions that are creating the disturbance to begin with. And so to stabilize in the golden light's really important. When your synapses and everything are getting fired, everything's going off in your brain. To have those tools is really important. And like I say, anybody who's waking up in any capacity right now, working on themselves in a partnership, anyone who has a job, a partner, or a family is getting their tuchus kicked. Whether they know it or not, whether they think it's just normal life, or whether they're more conscious and they're experiencing the big boot right now. It's just wild.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I think, once again, it's in relationships, and I'm seeing many people, and I work with a lot of people who are in relationships who seem to be falling apart. But I have to say, you get on with your side of it and let the other person get on with their side of it. And this is how you do it, And I agree with you that many of us are out of our bodies and in our heads, and we need to come downwards and descend really, and put those, we use similar techniques, put those roots down into the core of the earth, right, and allow them to go. Now, some people prefer more energetic exercises to get down, and as you say, more sensitive people, it takes a little longer, but they can feel in a more gentle way, so we do work in the same sort of a way. And then what happens is automatically they will start to get different realizations as their heart transform these so-called negative emotions. I don't actually see it as a negative emotion. I just see it as a blocked energy, really.
Any type of resistance can be reduced to what we call negative emotion. It's the same thing. It is the same thing. And we want to emphasize too, people don't often realize that that the heart is in the mental body. And as we are taught what love is, it too becomes divided. There are many sore spots, that people have within their hearts. I'm very good at reading auras and feeling into where they have this resistance within the physical body and helping them move through it and just make them aware of where it is. And so when you work on just transforming how you've been conditioned to love, like we spoke about in the beginning, if you went to any kind of church, they're telling you have to feed them and you have to take responsibility and you should and you have to. And when you're giving from that division within your heart, what you're giving, even though it's well-intentioned, isn't being able to be received with the gift of giving. And when you see someone as less than, you're not seeing them as in the truth of who they are. So you're not uplifting them to realize that they're creating this prosperity that you're giving them from their energy field. And so we're not empowering the prosperity in that, are we? We're saying, people do it from ego too. I can give to you because I have more than you. They give from the ego to the person who has less without seeing them as their equal, in their heart. And so that's something that, people, we've been talking about that for a while. So pay attention to how you give. Wow. Homeless people in this country call through millions of dollars of clothing and food and shelter and everything else, not because they're lacking, but because they're bringing their prosperity about in a whole different way. And people don't realize too that the conditions that they see them in, that the people who are in those conditions don't feel them nearly as much as the people who are viewing them in their condition. There's so many people in varying degrees of why people choose or not to be in the world of homelessness and poverty, as they call it. But some of these people feel freer than ever. And so who are we? Just give because you want to give. Who cares if the guy needs a bottle of wine? God bless, whatever. I don't know.
No,
just give or don't give. Nobody cares. Okay. Love doesn't care. Love just loves.
I agree. And I think there's a great danger in sentimentality, because to me, sentire means to feel, and mentality means with the head. And I think that we,
Oh, that's good. I like that.
and so we make things up, we make feelings up based upon our conditioned sort of responses and how we think that we should feel in a certain situation. And you get to a point where you think, hang on, I'm making this up. I'm giving, have you ever spent hours and hours choosing a present for your loved one, and you get it and you present it to them on Christmas Day and they say, I didn't want that, and you feel hurt by it? Well, that's because you were expecting something, and this is what I try and tell people is, it's like monkeys do that. You scratch my back and I'll scratch yours. I've given you something, and consciously or unconsciously, I want something back in return. And that's what I was saying at the beginning of the talk is, it's conditional, but we think it's unconditional. It's actually possessiveness that we think is freedom. So I think that we've lived in this upside down world. And I think whether we like it or not, the planet's being turned and our consciousness is being turned back to the right way up. And Siobahn, it hurts like hell to see the truth, because as you well know, the sword of truth cuts both ways. As it's cutting you free, it hurts like buggery. But when it's cut right through, it starts to free you then to become who you really are, not who you've been pretending to be all your life, even though you didn't know it.
It's brutal. And, people that choose to work with us are very intentional about wanting to be free, because it's not everybody's cup of tea. People just really don't want to hear it, but the sword is designed to, cut through the darkness to reveal the light that lives within it. It is to show you to the bone what is going on, and is without judgment and everything else. But when people are so wounded, or that, it creates a lot of blowback. I deal with a lot of people who have issues with, their houses, which is the body, right? And so what people would consider demonic or that type of energy is just an accumulation of that negative emotion. There's no such thing as a demon. It may appear that way because it needs you to be frightened in order for you to play its game and be connected to it. However, we have found in our many years of doing this work that really it's a culmination of that within them, because everything here is energy, and energy is everything. And so if you have hatred in you towards your parents, and that has a vibration, it's going to, because we live in this big soup of energy, energy, that which is likened to itself is drawn. We've heard that, right? Esther Hicks, this is very true. So energy floating around, because energy does not dissipate, it has to be transformed in order to, it can be turned into something else. That's why we're such huge advocates of going inward to transform the lead into gold, if you will. And so if you're not doing that and you're out in the world and you're ungrounded and your body, your physical body is exposed to this energy that's everywhere in the world of every kind, that has not been transformed, then you're susceptible to it. And if you're drinking, and if you're sloppy thinking, and if you're just doing all these things, and the hole gets bigger in the aura and the energy becomes, bigger within you. And then it looks like something when you express it. And, put away your crucifixes, folks, because those won't do a damn thing. Create more problems. So anyway, we deal with people with bigger issues because we tend to be like, we break down the ego, and the ego is anything that edges God out, or anything that edges good out, right? That's the greatest acronym ever. And so people that work with us, we really kind of carry a big stick, because Spirit doesn't want me taking all of this blowback, which we get from people's. We have to be able to stand in our light stronger than they are in their belief that we're going to somehow cave in, play the game, and engage. It's quite a dance. So yeah, the truth. What was a line I heard in a movie? The truth is like poetry. And nobody really wants to hear poetry, or something like that. I can't remember what movie that was in, but it was pretty funny when I heard it.
Yeah, I can understand. That would.
I think it was heard on a bar stool in New York or something.
Yeah, no. So I agree, and what we said before is, I think the deeper you sink, and the more your heart opens, the more this transformation process comes through. So what's being obstructed or misaligned, or whichever word you want to use, as it transformed, we feel more power flow in. for positive
There
use,
is every single particle of every single atom within you is made of love. We don't have to go just to the heart center. And this is where people get confused. It isn't radiating just from here that you are love. You are love in totality. The totality of your being is love. And I find that spiritual people, they get with that because they want, and they open their heart and they call forth whatever they want. But when they do that, it can almost be manipulative because they can see the power in drawing bees to the honey. And then you get to know who they are, and they're not what they project. So there's a way that people, say it's all about the heart center, open your heart. Well, open every cell of your body to the love you are. And what's going to happen is you activate the love you are within every particle of every molecule of every level of your being. And that which doesn't know itself to be the love that it is, because all there is love in truth, will then become more obvious within your experience. The emotional energy is part of the physical experience, and it happens just because you take on form. You're forming in the mother's womb, and there's, a negativity, there's emotion everywhere, and your body's being imprinted with it until you're about 8 and you have no ability to do anything about it. So this is where your emotional baggage gets gathered this time, from the time you're conceived until you're about 7 or 8 years old. I found that to be absolutely true. And, so then it has a vibration, then it draws back to it more of what you feel like. And then when the mind can identify how it feels, it splits itself off, denies the feeling, and talks about it. And now the story is irrelevant because it isn't what happened, it's how you felt about what happened. And it's hard to remember in the moment when you really want to go off on somebody, but then that is the exact action that the child within you wants to express. And if you express it out into the world, that energy becomes more of the problem, because the world is dual here, as most people experience it, and is in truth, it's all love. But until you experience yourself as love, you're never going to experience the world as love. So you're part of the problem rather than the solution. And so when we can remember, it's never the adult, it's the child. And when you learn how to contain yourself in the presence of your loving being and do the inner work to allow that child to express even the most heinous emotions within the love of being, it transforms right on the spot, and therefore it doesn't become part of the problem in the world. The love is then reborn within the aura, and you are part of the solution in a very powerful way. You reclaim the light of your soul.
Now, I just explain things like, this is what I say because it works for me, that it transforms through a deep and open and flowing heart. Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. These are the words that I use. You can choose any words that you like, or any, but I'm talking about.
I don't choose words. I just speak.
I'm putting out a feeling here, and I'm putting words on it because this is what works for me. Now you can go and choose any words that work for you based upon
Absolutely.
a feeling, So I agree with you, but the whole point that I'm trying to make is it's not really the heart, it's the soul. But what is the soul? It's just a deeper feeling within me. And I know that I feel that I've got a long way to go, because I feel that the soul's always learning from its own experience.
Absolutely.
And evolving. So
That's
it's just dropping a day at a time, and then just waiting then to see what actually emerges right in the vision of my consciousness on the next day. And that's why I wholeheartedly just live one day at a time, and I wake up with a completely clean sheet, and I sort of listen in with my left ear to my heart. I tap on my heart and I say, what have we got on the cards today? And then I just wait, and then I see what comes to me then, and then I go forward on that. And I'm going to carry on until I get a different way of doing things.
Right, until it shifts, right? And you become another level of the same thing. It just says we evolve, so does our way of speaking, our way of being. And we understand that you understand what you're saying, but we really wanted to address on the level that you're saying at, well, we wanted to address that so the audience really gets that, because there's a lot of work about just opening your heart. And there's so much people don't realize about that. And it's really good to bring that to their awareness so they can begin to play with that within themselves. We're not just, love just doesn't live within our heart. It is within all of who we are. And it's just reclaiming that light, like you say, through our process of evolution. The world is our teacher, and love is the teaching. And we have experiences all the time with people. Relationships are like the greatest intimate reflection in some ways. And if you have two people that are dedicated to owning how they feel and doing their inner work, no words ever really need to be exchanged between one another in a negative way. It's feeling and healing, coming back to love with your partner. Some people want to exchange all this information about what they think and how they feel. And it's like, shut up, get out of the story. Love yourself. Oh my God, that's it. Because otherwise it becomes a projection. And then I say, great, well, if you've got all this awareness, then why don't you write it down? Write a book.
Yeah.
Because it becomes, again, part of the, what we call it is like emotional, it's like a pain bonding.
Oh, absolutely. I understand that perfectly. I think, Siobahn, I've got a couple of questions here from the audience, let's call them, from Farida. Could the darkness be perceived as a quality or place simply awaiting the light?
The darkness can be perceived through every different individual as something different, but what I know it to be is love. It just doesn't know itself to be the love that it is. And I also understand that the only way it's ever going to know itself to be that love is by ourselves making conscious within us the love that we are and being that presence until it transforms.
And Farida's got another question. She asks good questions, Farida. Is the heart or the higher heart the engine? I think we've more or less just answered this. The engine or the generator of and for love?
The higher heart, yes. The divided heart, no. The divided heart is more like open, close, open, close. The higher heart, you know, you can utilize that chakra more when you get to that level of being that love. But what we help people do is to recognize that every bit of them is that love. So they radiate even brighter, like from the top of the head to the base of the spine and in every direction. So yeah, higher heart for sure.
Yeah, I see that. And I see the way I see it. If you take the 7 major spinal chakras, you know, just as a sort of a guide, I see that the heart being the 4th one's in the middle. I see that there's a lower component and a higher component. And I think what actually happens is, in a triangular sort of a way, we almost hit a rock bottom where we can't go any further. And that's at about 3.49. And at that point, lots of people like myself did for years and years, we loop around again to see if we can come up in our heads with any new ideas. And in the end, we come to a point where we've thought every thought possible and we surrender. And it's almost like in that surrender, the miracle happens because a portal opens up and we almost get transported like a Hoover or a vacuum cleaner. And we get drawn up then into the first stages of the higher heart. And I think that that's really what a spiritual awakening is, because I see a rock bottom as really, it's the actual the ceiling to the next dimension, you know, we're looking. So that's what feels to happen to me. And there's also there's lots of psychological correlates to this, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You know, he talked about different stages, and 10 years before he died, he actually introduced 7 stages to the development of the fully rounded human being that he called somebody with self-mastery or self-actualization. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to link, or I'm being guided to link, the autonomic nervous system and those plexuses, you know, those whirlwinds of energy, with the 7 major glands, the endocrine glands, with also the 7 major chakras. And also I'm trying to link the psychological aspects of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So that's what I'm actually doing at the moment, is trying to bring different levels and more subtle energies into manifestation so that people can generally understand how a descension or materialization and ascension actually happen. And that's a process that seems to be going on in an infinity loop all the time, when in actual fact it's a sort of spiral dynamic where we're all moving forward if we can just surrender completely and feel our way with the flow to the next action that we've got to take. Good grief, I'll have to listen back to that because that sounded quite good. That
You're gonna want to write that one down, Joe.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Totally. We used in one of our exercises, when we use golden light, when we transform negative emotion, there are techniques, several different ways we teach people how to do that. And the initial way we teach them is more so they can, from the place of separation they're typically in, teach them how to let go and do these different processes. But once they get really super good at it, then we turn them on to a meditation we have called the Sovereign Baptism of Love. And it goes straight into the sacred heart or the higher heart. And it just radiates this, the font, right, of golden light, just glistening in the golden light. And then we just sit and we call every part of ourselves that is ready to go. To bring itself from every little shadow from wherever that's ready to be reborn into that love. We draw it, just allow it to come. We just draw it from, the radiating love, it comes into the heart, falls in and is reborn in that moment. So there are some parts of you that are just waiting for love to reveal itself. So it knows that love is there. And that's why we teach people how to activate the consciousness of love within the physical body, because the negative emotion is part of the physical experience. And so as you make that love conscious within you, you're making consciousness conscious within you. It's one thing to know your higher consciousness, but do you have the experience of yourself as higher consciousness? Even, when I'm sick, like this whole thing with I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about the vaccine. I didn't get it. I felt like I could better deal with I was in resistance to the shot. So I knew myself to know I'm in less resistance. So I could give a shit about the the COVID itself. I'm sorry. I really don't care. It's like, okay, how? And so when I did get it, I just went into myself as consciousness. And from that state of the consciousness that I experienced myself to be within the form of who I am, I was literally speaking to it and saying, allowing it to let go of the illusion of disease. And so, when you really awaken consciousness within you and the love that is that consciousness, the consciousness that is that love, you can play with it on so many levels with yourself, which is fabulous, and really experience yourself as the love that you are. So yeah, what's funny about that when I've talked about that in the past is that the vaccine is as much consciousness as the virus. But I'm in resistance to this. So I'm like, I know I could sort through a virus, but I don't know how I would have been able to sort through anything else. So I believe in the freedom of choice. And so God bless everyone who made their choice. And, but that was what I felt I could dig my way out of. So I did. But that is how you experience yourself as consciousness and work with the body in that way. Thank you for my perfect health and whatever is out of sync, you can let go of that illusion of disease. And what else do we have to do?
I agree. It's all about energy. I agree. And it's all about different dimensions of energy. It's all about different potentials and different frequencies. I agree. So if it's all about energy, anything that's material, including bacterial infections, viral infections, vaccinations, and everything else can be changed from the highest and deepest perspective within us. And I honestly believe that. I didn't get vaccinated as well because I asked my heart, and this is what I say, I'm just saying I asked my heart, which means my innate intelligence, right? I go,
I asked my loving consciousness, my loving
I go and say
itself in my heart.
Because this is like my best mate here, and I have that sort of, somebody said to me once, you can't talk to the Almighty like that. And I said, hang on, it's not almighty to me, it's old matey, right? And that's what I talk.
Oh, I love it.
So I go to old matey and I say, because it's in my mind, I've got like a sort of a Yoda type intelligence in there. And I go, hello, are you awake? Come on, wake up. I need to ask you a question. All this stuff that's going on about viruses and vaccinations, what do I have to do? Just say no, Joe. Okay, thanks very much. Right. And I got bombarded, absolutely and utterly bombarded, like lots of other people did. But I had this sort of presence, if you like, of mind, just to say no, thank you. And Siobahn, here's the irony. I teach the ethics of informed consent. That's what I do in postgraduate medicine. I teach that, right? And I watched it, right, being sort of dissolved across the planet. And I just held my ground because I was being looked after. And to say, hang on a second, informed consent means you get all the information and you're allowed to go and research and find out more information. And then you can put it in your heart. That's what I say to people, put it in your heart and almost allow your heart to decide by the way that you feel. That to me is true discernment. If we're talking about the sword of truth, that's where my sword of truth is, in this deepest feeling possible. and I've had no problem. And I can say, and when people really push it, then if I'm in a situation, I'll just turn around and ignore them and not give them any energy, because my belief is that there is a sort of counteracting sort of force, if you like, that wants to steal my energy by me giving it attention. So I just breathe it away from an open flowing heart and then go and do something else. That's the technique that I've been shown, and it seems to be quite effective. And what tends to happen is the people who are pushing it, then they tend to get irate, they tend to get angry. And so I just leave it then, because they're generating all those negative emotions for themselves. So I allow them almost to destroy themselves with a smile.
Oh gosh. Yeah, well, that's the way it works. So C.S. Lewis, The Great Divorce.
C.S. Lewis, was he the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe fellow?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That's a good little read. I still haven't finished yet. My daughter's been encouraging me for a long time, but it's basically that same thing. It's like back in the old days, we'd say just give them enough rope.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. No, and I agree. But I didn't used to know this, but I see it so clearly now.
Yeah.
And one thing I've been sort of taught in the teachings that have helped me is that if I'm feeling emotionally disturbed, it's something in me that needs to be looked at. So what I need to do is accept it. Okay, I am emotionally disturbed. And then breathe it away, create some mind space where I can become much more objective about my own subjectivity, if you like. So I go into that objective consciousness of witnessing. I almost look at Joe on his own stage, and I sort of say, we have a conversation or a dialogue. What is it that I need to learn from this disturbance? Well, Joe, you said no there when really you should have said yes. Go back and say, you've changed your mind. I mean to say no. And the little Joe in me would come up generally and say, oh, do I have to? and then this bigger part of me then comes in to say, yes, son, yes, let's go and do it together, right? And that's what you call, growing up. And that's what I mean by emotional responsibility is I am responsible for the choices I make, end of story, and the actions I take, really.
When things hurt a sensitive being to their core, it is easier said than done. You can feel your part. You don't know why this person continues to be the way they are, and we take it somewhat personally because we feel everything so deeply: the dismissiveness, the rudeness, the just the way some people can be that are so brash and so harsh that it disturbs the auric field. It's really something. And there's always what I've found within my own healing, which I still continue to do. It's like it's the Michelangelo thing, like you said, we're always learning. I'm still learning. And to love myself more, taking it and finding within my aura where it began this life. So, there's not one thing within my experience that I haven't been able to take back to either parent or a sibling. And it's all there, and I'm like, holy cow, we were dealing with this 30 years ago, and it's like a subtle veil. But why have I all of a sudden feel this vibration moving through my body that I haven't felt for that long? Oh well, there must be more deeper levels of that are coming up for love to know that she's safe, that she's okay, that it's not her fault, it's whatever. And it takes a bit. I find that I have to spend time alone to deal with these types of things. Especially if I'm dealing with anger of some level. Like anger has always been my thing, all the levels herein. I wrote the book on how many levels to anger there actually are. So people don't even realize that annoyed is actually a level of anger. And so frustration, all these things we just gloss over as, oh, well, it's still being in a thing. It's just not gone up the scale to be hatred or rage, right? But to go in and do the inner work as we do, I call it nuclear these days. It's literally an atomic, kind of like a mushroom cloud that goes on in me in transformation. And, if I'm being triggered in some way, the last thing I want to do is have a big conversation about it. I just want to be left alone to deal with it. And then I can be just fine on the other side, which usually takes a few hours sometimes, but it's a way to not get any on anybody.
Yeah.
if I can
Yeah.
possibly help it. Yeah.
I'm the same. I do. I feel it, poof, in my stomach. I think, whoa, hang on. Now, before I would have immediately reacted, stand up for myself, fight or whatever. But now I know, boom, hang on. There's a lesson in this. Oh, this is a big one. Take a step back, breathe away, try and create some space so I can see it more clearly. And sometimes I'll go for a run in nature because that does it for me. Or I'll go
Nature's
for a
wonderful
swim
for
in the
that.
river or something. And then I start to get more clarity. Have I got it sussed? Not in the slightest. I feel like I'm only ever scratching the surface of what's possible. I really do. And people ask me, for advice, and all I can say to them is, I don't know what you need to do, but you do. So this is the technique that I've been shown, and I show them the breathing technique with positive emotion. And I say, now, when you've got that sort of feeling of relaxation, ask yourself, what do they mean? Ask yourself and say, well, you're talking to you all the time. Go and dig into the wisest aspect of who you are and ask the question. Just ask the question. Because my view was, you see, I was a person that I knew everything. People would say to me, something, and I'd say, I know. And the truth is, I knew next to bugger all, and that's the truth of it. So I prefer now to be in a situation of not knowing really, but trying to find out a little bit more about stuff, and it seems to be working. And as I
Okay,
say,
so tell me this now that I have to back you up just for a second. You just said that you call upon that deeper wisdom aspect of yourself. Now tell me, my dear Joe, what would you give it a name if it had one? Who is that wise part of you? Is there any name to it, or is it just the greater part? Is it just an aspect of consciousness you don't need to give a name, or is, if it had a name, who would it be? Who's the
well, I tend not to
deeper
name anymore because I think names confusing, because some
They
people
do,
would call it God, and then that immediately sends people into, oh, he's a religious nutter,
into the
and so,
weeds.
yeah, exactly. So no, for me, it's a feeling, and I do have a picture that goes with it. And as I say, it's like a wise old sage sitting by a font. It's almost like he's by a font. And I have this sort of ancient, sort of Egyptian, Greek type feeling. There's always some sand there because that's, and it's almost, as I go down, I almost feel like the heart opens and I go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And then I go in and say, all right, how are you getting on? Right, I'm all right, thanks. What do you want? Well, I've got a few problems here. I wonder if you can help me out. And I go and discuss it with this deepest part of me, not expecting any answers there and then, or even a conversation, but some sort of energy thing happens. And when I climb back out, I've got more clarity on it, and sometimes a clear idea of which direction I should go. And that's what works for me. And I'm always willing to listen, because I listen to everything that everybody says.
It's a beautiful image, because as you're speaking that, I'm seeing you wearing some sort of linen, something that goes down to your ankles, and you're sitting on the sand with your feet just in some clear water, just moving your feet and then getting up and, having your answer. So that's a very nice visual.
It's funny you should say that, because I had a few years ago, I had one of those regressions, and I sort of, in the regression, I came upon this sand with this white long flowing thing on. Yeah. And I looked down to my feet and they were tanned or brown or whatever, but they had golden sandals on, right? Yeah. And I thought, they're good legs, this is Joe sort of trying to work out what I was seeing, but I had all that feeling of that ancient Egypt and all that. Now, I don't get too taken away with that, really.
Correct.
But, I feel it, and I don't know, Siobahn, I can't really explain it in words, but I don't really need to, because it's what I feel that determines the sort of the choices that I make these days.
Correct. And that's what we tell people too. We train people in intuitive development. We have 3 different levels of classes in that. And the one thing we say, okay, so how do you know when something is true? How do you know what it is for you? And nobody stops really much to give that a little bit of thought. And we do get them to feel into that experience of when someone's lying to you, how do you know that? You're not thinking about it. You're feeling what they're saying, and it doesn't ring true. So it's when something has that same feeling. It's intuitive. There's no thinking about it. It feels good. You're there. This is where you get your information. And what's interesting too, on the other side of this inner work we teach people how to do into the transformation of their negative emotion, is that we don't look for what happened before. We do the work, we just base it on how we feel in any given moment. And then when we come out the other side is when we get the clarity.
Yeah.
You know, people are always looking for the who, what, why, when, where, and how first, and they get on their way by doing that. And so, you know, when you get into the feeling, as we're talking about, when you get into the mindlessness, which is far more valuable. I think mindfulness is a trend, but it would think it was a trend in self-awareness. I don't know, because I don't read people's stuff. But, you know, self-awareness is a brilliant tool, because when you stay grounded in your being, and like meditation for decades, so I have to laugh at how we were taught to sit down, get connected, then disconnect, go about your day, and then you sit down. This is about being connected all the time.
I agree.
And so the tools that we work with people now are working with their energy field way consciously throughout their day, you know, feeling into where it is within the body and dropping it to the floor if need be, you know, taking time while you're driving, like sitting here right now, learning how to multitask. I've got my energy in many different places simultaneously. I have my awareness. And so you develop that through these different simple meditations. You develop all of these things, but it's actually, you know, teaching you how to get into the feeling nature of your being, because if you can feel, then you know without thinking. Intuition is awareness or movement without forethought. And when you learn to manage your energy so you can move about your day in this mindless way, it's not like you lose touch with anything. You're quite in touch with everything. It's a really beautiful way of being.
No, I agree. And I think mindfulness led me to mindlessness, but they just
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
I think mindfulness leads us to heartfulness, you know, and it leads us to the 0 point where there's complete silence, but the potential of everything is in that point there, you know. And I see that in that still point, there's almost like a little point that if you get it, it just goes whoosh, and it fills you with more and more and more information that's just waiting really to sort of percolate and emerge, you know. But it's almost like you've just got to just sit. And this is difficult with no expectation, because I can see that my life beforehand, it was just memory on the one side and expectations on the other side. So, you know, jumping from one hemisphere to the other, never coming up. Shall I do this? So you take an action, and part of you said, oh, I should have done the other thing, you know. So nothing was ever clear. So I've got this thing now where the two hemispheres of my brain and my heart, there's sort of a triangulation. And if I really feel that I don't know what to do, I just take both of these parts of my head that have got conflict, I stick them in my heart, and I almost like say to this inner wisdom, give us a clue, right? And I don't wait for an answer there and then. I wait for a feeling to emerge. And Siobahn, sometimes it's as simple as turn left at the bottom of the road, you know, and it comes that clearly to me sometimes.
It's the mind that we're conditioned to go to for every answer lightning fast. And that's where we need to train ourselves not to go. You're explaining it perfectly in the way that we, you know, encourage people to, when you're doing this inner work, you are love in every aspect of your being. So you just become aware of the love where it is within the body as you are watching and feeling, not thinking about what you see and thinking about what you feel. We reiterate that through meditation quite often. Don't think about what you see, don't think about what you feel, just be the love that you are, where, you know, watch it evolve. So we have no expectation. We never know what that kid's going to show us. We just know when we are feeling angry and we feel it in the left part of our, you know, pancreas, that we just allow our awareness to settle in that area of the body, hold, you know, activate the love within that area of the body, holding it, and watching what happens, instead of the mind getting in the way and going, okay, there's the child, I'm going to move it around like this, and then he's fine, he's healed. But the child never understood words. It understood love. It just wants a way to express itself. And so you just allow the scene to unfold. And so that's what kind of the largest humps for people to get over, is learning how just to allow it to reveal itself. Just allow it to be, allow it to reveal itself, and then give it the love that, you know, that it is crying out for. Sometimes it won't accept it either. And that's okay, because love doesn't care, it just loves. And the most important thing is to let that part of you know that might be in more resistance than you realize, that no matter how it feels, it's worthy of love, that love is there. It's always been there. It's never going to go away. And when it's ready, love will be right there.
Beautiful. I agree, you know, and I have a thing, what you just explained, It's called cultivating an inner smile. And that's what I do. I take a smile into each organ, and it sort of softens them then, you know, and allows that maybe trapped energy just to sort of open up and flow back into the whole systems approach, really. So, I mean, we do sort of work in similar ways, although we use different words and stuff, you know. And so we're coming up to time now, and I'm just going to look through and see if anybody's got any other questions. Just bear with me 1 second.
No worries.
Hello, Rosie. I'm just saying. Hello, Anna. Good to darkness. No, so the mind ego is not the enemy. Wisdom firstly arises from experience within the heart. Yeah. So let me just feel my way into this sort of closing down thing. The feng shui, I sort of keep getting drawn to the sort of feng shui of things, you know, both externally and internally. And the way my mind shows me things is, as we work from the inside out, it's almost like a puncture repair mechanism where we sort of plug up any holes from the inside out in the way. So just before we go, have you got a simple, easy to do, straightforward technique that if anybody's feeling emotionally disturbed, what would you suggest to them?
Okay, in the moment, this is very effective. Know that your loving being is a golden orb. Realize that you allow it to drift out of the body because it's never been taught that it belongs fully within it. It's connected to your solar plexus in a cord. What you want to do, you have to realize in the moment, when you're getting knocked off your balance, get familiar with that orb and drop it to the ground. The more you get conscious with the golden orb of that loving being, the faster you'll be able to drop it to the earth. And when you feel it hit the floor, inhale the golden light down the spine, allow the golden light to come to the base of the spine, open up the base of the spine and drop anchor like that. And what that does is it stabilizes you. It takes you out of here because you're taking the light out of the mental and spiritual bodies and bringing it down around all of you. So there is this calming effect. And then you stabilize in your loving being. And you literally can see yourself and feel yourself in this orb, which then expands through you when you bring it all the way down into the body and be buffered because it's golden light, not avoiding, but buffered from the duality that you're being affected by, to where you're aware of what's happening, but you're not reacting to what's happening.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And I agree totally with that. I see the golden light all the time now and feel that, you know, and recently there's been a transformation, I think, across the globe, and we've shifted more into a golden type feeling. I feel that very much. But the simple technique I'm helping people, and just to go back to, I'm writing a book, I will get there eventually, and it's called The F Off Approach to Health and Happiness, you know, F off, right? And it sounds rude, that, but what it stands for is to focus on feelings first. So the F off captures people. That's interesting. I wonder what that's about, right?
That's hysterical.
And it's to focus on feelings first. And I was given that, you know, how these sort of implants the sort of thoughts in, write a book called this, Joe. And then my head said, right, but that won't do my medical or professional life any good. Just write the book, Joe.
Yeah, that's the guy in the gold sandals.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, the technique that I've been taught and I've used for a long, long time now is just simply place both hands on your heart. Or if you want to, you can do a technique called cradling the golden child. So you can put one hand on your heart and one on your solar plexus, as though you're actually snuggling a golden child into your heart. And it's almost, when you get good at it, it's like your heart and the child's heart start to work synchronistically, you know, and they start to beat together. But the whole point about it is to breathe in slowly and breathe out slowly. So most people breathe around 12 to 15 breaths per minute at rest. The idea would be, is over time, is to get it down to 6 breaths per minute. It's very important, from the way that the nervous system, the autonomic nervous system works, that you get it around about 6 breaths per minute. Because what happens then is there's almost like a sacred reunion happens, and those two sides of that polarity start to unify and work together in harmony, you know, and that's associated with the 0 point, right, where nothing happens, but everything happens, you know. So it's to breathe in, 2, 3, 4, 5, stop, out, 2, 3, 4, 5, stop. But it's not a head thought. It's to actually feel the feeling, as though a positive emotion of love is actually coming through the palm of your hand into your heart.
The more you work with
Collect
these
it.
things, the more they connect all those dots. It becomes
Yeah.
more automatic, like everything else. Yeah.
And the mantra I use, another rude one, because that's who I am, is breathe in the light. It can be a golden light if you want, and breathe out the shite. Right? So there's another one. So you can get that picture of, as the light goes in, it collects all the gunge, and you can breathe it out, and you can give it back to the universe to process it for you. You know. Siobahn, I love you. Thanks very
I love
much.
you
This has
too.
been absolutely great.
Thank you
And
so much.
we'll hopefully do another one in a few months down the line when the time is right, if you're up for it.
Can I have put in a shameless plug there with my
Oh,
website?
absolutely. Yeah, go for it.
If anybody would has any more questions, and thank you for being here today, you can always reach me at my website, which is myname.com. So SiobahnnNicolaou.com. Is it written anywhere? Yes, it is. So yeah.
It is. And by all means, put it up in the comments. If you can put your link up in the comments.
Okay, great. In the chat there.
So thanks very much. Have a nice rest of the day, and may the force remain with you forever and ever. Amen.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.